Okay, next, go to the king's bedroom. I mean, we already pretty much looked through here. There was just the one painting that I want to have a look at first before I do anything. Oh, hi, you're
I
in here.
returned to the king bedroom, where I'd been when the whole grisly affair started. I thought it might give me a chance to think by myself, but alas, it was not to be. The curtains were drawn back, and a particularly pernicious twerp of a girl was leaning halfway out the window. After what had already happened, it would be such a shame were she to slip and go out all the way.
Yeah, I was about to say, can we just boot her out?
Young girls these days really ought to be more careful.
Okay, fine, let's talk to her first. We can ask her about the murder mystery.
So, your sweet little friend. She can be quite the tease, it seems. I was just talking to her earlier, and she let it drop that this wasn't her first murder case.
You must think you're very clever for worming that out of her. You know, I bet you're one of those people who think they're a lot smarter than they really are, aren't you?
My dear Leah, something like that is not exactly the wisest thing to say when you're perched precariously on the edge of a window. It's ever so fortunate that I'm in a good mood today.
A good mood? Here, now. How could... No, never mind. I forgot who I was talking to.
In any case, my dear, Miss Therese said the only other one here who was involved in that case was you. No matter how smart I might or might not think I am, surely you can't blame me for wondering whether it might be relevant to our current predicament.
Well, it's not. Not directly, anyway.
Aha, not directly. Now we're getting somewhere.
Look, I don't want to talk about it, and I'm sure Sherry said the same thing. It was bad. For everyone, but especially for her. The truth she learned that day, she's never going to forget. And she definitely doesn't need you dredging it all up.
Oh, I have a feeling she's gonna try anyway. Oh, she was the killer, probably her family's shady past.
There's no need to tell me, darling. She learned the truth about her family, didn't she? That not all that lovely money of theirs was obtained through, how shall we say, completely honest business. It's plain as day, really. Insufferably idealistic young socialite comes into her fortune and starts throwing it at every charitable cause she can find out of guilt. Oh yes, I know her type well enough.
We learned that her family had been mixed up with some really bad people. No, more than just bad. With true evil.
Oh yeah, I was actually right.
And so it turns out her life of wealth and comfort was built on the blood of innocence. So very tragic for her, I'm sure.
Yeah, pretty sure anyone who gets insanely wealthy have spilled blood at some point or another.
She just wants to make up for it all. Make it all right again. Sometimes I worry she thinks she can carry the weight of the whole world. She pushes herself hard enough.
Yes, I did say insufferably idealistic, didn't I?
If by that you mean a better person than you'll ever be, then yeah, that's spot on. She just needs someone to watch her back. That's all.
And I'm guessing that somebody is you.
And let me guess, you do whatever it takes to keep your dear little friend safe, wouldn't you?
Whatever it takes.
My, such ardor, such resolve. Remind me never to get on your bad side, darling.
Too late.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna be having a catfight between these two sooner or later. Okay, well, let's start asking about the others.
So your friend Miss Therese, just how long had she been seeing our dear departed host?
Not that long, but he seemed pretty intense about it. Nighttime river cruises, the opera, the theatre, you name it.
Again, how old is this chick?
Ah, swept off her feet into a whirlwind romance with a dark and mysterious, dashing older man. Your friend must have been positively giddy with excitement.
Something like that, yeah.
Oh, it must have been so hard for you, being left out of all that and resigned to watching from the sidelines.
Yeah, right. That kind of high society stuff isn't really my thing.
Yeah, we've noticed.
No, I suppose not.
Come to think of it, Wizard Boy sometimes looked a little pouty at being left out, though.
Did he really? How do you know? Did he tell you so?
So he killed him out of jealousy, maybe?
No, nothing like that. Just an impression I got. Not really my business anyway. As long as Sherry's happy, I'm happy. That's all that matters.
I see. So, was she happy?
It was what she wanted. So yeah.
And try though you might, you just can't bring yourself to sound happy about that. My, how curious.
So she might have also killed out of jealousy.
Look, if you're gonna pry any further, you'd better go get yourself a crowbar, don't you think?
Okay, who are you?
Now, Miss Leah, was it? I'm afraid I just don't know very much about you. Who are you exactly?
I'm Sherry's friend.
And that's it?
I rather gathered that much. But, my dear girl, what with her enormous fortune, social connections, and nauseatingly innocent good looks, I'd imagine the list of people who'd like to be friends with Miss Charisse is rather long. What's special about you?
Fine. My parents were rich too. They're in the tech business. Sherry and I went to private school together. I helped her with math, she helped me be a better person. Fair trade, I hope.
About that.
You say were. Have your parents passed away as well?
No, we just don't get along too well right now.
Ah, and your dear old fabulously wealthy school friend took you in. How sweet of her.
Uh-huh, I see where you're going with this. And no, I'm not financially dependent on Charisse. Sure, I live with her, but I've got a nice little fund of my own. So I've got no motive to bump off a boyfriend out of fear that he'll kick me out of the house or something like that.
Oh my, perish the thought. I'd never dream of suggesting such a thing.
But you were definitely thinking it.
No, I'm sure you've got much nastier things to save for your dreams.
That's definitely true. Okay, and what are you doing?
My dear little girl, just what are you doing? You're liable to go for quite the little tumble if you keep leaning out the window like that.
I'm trying to get a decent signal.
Oh, for your phone? Yes, it does seem like you young people just can't get by without them these days.
I don't care about the phone. I want network access.
Whatever for.
So I can hack the phone company records and figure out who called this house.
Actually, that's a pretty smart idea.
You can do that, can you?
Yep.
So probably best not to throw her out the window just yet.
Look, I hate people staring over my shoulder when I'm working. Can't you go find a fainting couch and a bottle of smelling salts or something?
Okay, well, so who called the house?
So, who was it then that called the house?
If I tell you, would it get you to leave me alone?
My dear girl, this predicament affects all of us. If you found out anything that might be in the least helpful, surely it's in all of our interests for you to share it.
I'll take that as a yes. Fine. The number is 11223344. It's a business number registered to Oxley Accounting Services.
Okay, we might need to get that call in a moment.
An accountant? Doesn't exactly sound like a social call, now does it?
Who knows? As far as I can tell, this Prince Titanico had some pretty weird friends.
You haven't tried contacting them then?
No, that'd mean talking to more weirdos. I'd rather try and hack into their private email or something and see what's up.
I'll leave you to it, my dear.
Okay, so yeah, we found out some very interesting info there. Okay, let's try examining the room, because we pretty much already examined everything except for this.
I'd hope that by taking a closer look at the ruined portrait, I might be able to discern who had been pictured. I could imagine no shortage of delicious reasons why a lord's portrait might be disfigured in a house such as this. Shredded by a bitter servant when the master was thought absent. Savaged by an angry child who never quite lived up to expectations. Alas, the portrait seemed more a victim of old age than of some crime of passion. And of the face, I could make out nothing at all.
Seems a little bit too convenient. Okay, let's leave the room. Okay, so yeah, the only one left is the queen bedroom. Yeah, this has all the ones that have scratched off of the portraits.
In the queen bedroom, I found my old social acquaintance, the Comtessa. To say that I trusted her was going much too far. But I had certainly known her longer than anyone else there that evening. Besides that, I knew her to have an ear for gossip and an eye for detail. If there was anyone who could tell me a little more about the cast of our little drama, it was her.
There you are, Misfortune, darling. I must say this whole affair is just dreadful, isn't it?
Tragic. Truly tragic.
Prince Titanico was an eccentric man, but he knew how to put on a show. Sadly, this is rather more than I expected, I'm afraid.
Are we really sure he didn't plan the whole thing after all? You know, have the last laugh, go out with a bang, that sort of thing?
Oh, no, my dear, I don't think so. The prince, by all accounts, was far too fond of himself for that.
Pity. It would have made for such a delicious story. Not to mention no longer having to worry about a possible killer being on the loose.
But yeah, still the question of how did he get a stab wound in his back?
Quite so.
Okay, well let's talk to her.
Comtessa darling, I just heard a delectable little morsel of gossip and simply must share it with someone.
Why, some scrumptious gossip is just what I need right now. Do tell me more, dear.
I was talking to the Leah girl, you know, Sharice's little hanger-on, and she hinted that she'd been feuding with her family and was more or less kicked out of the house.
Oh my, how sad for the poor young thing.
To be honest, if she lived with me, I'm quite sure I'd do the same. But do you know anything about who she is?
I dare say I know a little. Her parents were wealthy moguls in the technology sector. That is, until about a year ago.
Ugh, of course they were. No wonder I didn't know who she was. I find all that technobabble so terribly dull. So, what happened?
Yeah, I could tell by the way you dress.
Someone leaked the company's most sensitive records that suggested corporate espionage and other unsavory business. Thanks to a rather exorbitantly priced lawyers, the family avoided a prison sentence, but the company was ruined.
I see. Do you think, then, that our very own Miss Leah was...
The one to leak the files. Oh, darling, it's unseemly to speculate about such things. All I know is that they always said it must have been an inside job.
That's concerning.
A self-righteous brat who will send her own family up the river if that's what it takes to do what she thinks is right. And here I thought I couldn't like her any less than I already did.
And you kind of want to talk, but...
You know, it was really quite shocking. One minute the prince was playing host and telling ghost stories, and next thing you know, we all come running and he's dead on the floor.
Oh, indeed. That was a surprise of a most unpleasant nature.
Where were you when you heard the news? It was that one-eyed shambler in the ill-fitting coat who found me in the other bedroom. Did he find you first?
No. In fact, I was in here. And it was that young man with a decidedly orangish hue who brought me the news.
Our oh-so-helpful Horatio. He must have been done fixing the lights then.
Yes, they'd only just come on. I must say, he was in quite a state, with those robes of his flapping about everywhere. I expect I would have laughed if he didn't look so distressed.
Oh, alas, such a wasted opportunity.
Mind you, he didn't tell me exactly what the matter was at first. I'm not sure he knew himself. He only said that something had happened, and we had to gather everyone together right away.
And our two little darlings. You found them on the way back then?
Precisely. Just as we were coming back down to the main floor.
Well, it's good we've got that all straightened up. With so much running about the house, it's enough to make one's head spin trying to sort it all out.
Oh my word, yes. I used to get quite bad headaches myself. Especially back when I was with my second husband. Mind you, those only ever seemed to come on when he was telling golfing stories.
My dear, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting a headache talking to you too.
I don't know about you, but I can't shake the impression that Miss Therese was, for lack of a better term, the guest of honor this evening. What do you know about her?
Oh, the poor girl. She's an only child, and her parents passed away just recently.
Yes, I feel for her. An enormous inheritance, and all of a sudden no one around to tell her how to spend it. The family, they were industrialists, were they not?
That's right, though by the end they were into pretty much everything. Manufacturing, banking, real estate, and more. They were a bit close-lipped about their net worth, but certainly one of the richest private families in the empire.
And if I recall correctly, they were a new money family, too. Money-grubbing upstarts. I think I heard them called at court from time to time.
Did you really? I don't doubt it, of course. My word, that place can be just so beastly sometimes.
Actually, I thought that was rather tame. You should hear the things they call me.
Oh yes, they can say such horrid things about widows like us. Sometime you and I will have to swap stories of the more creative ones. When these circumstances are more pleasant, of course.
And your husbands aren't dying, that is.
Of course.
Okay, what about the prince?
Darling, I have a little confession to make. Although I'd met our good host, well, ex-host, a number of times, I'm afraid I never really knew him, if you understand what I mean.
I hardly expect you're the only one in that situation, my dear. The prince had this maddening habit of talking all the time and yet somehow still saying very little.
So was he really a prince then? Do you know?
These days, title really does not mean what it once did. After all, how many do you have now?
Oh, let me see. At least 3. All by marriage, of course. Sometimes it can be hard to keep track.
Just so. No doubt our late prince could make some claim or another, but these days, who can't? Just about anyone can claim a tenuous connection to some great old family that was thought lost in the Revolution, and it's so hard to prove them wrong. And as long as there isn't money involved, no one much cares to try.
So he called himself a prince, and that's about all anyone knew. He wasn't married or anything, was he?
Good heavens, I hope not. You did see him doting all over our sweet little Charisse, didn't you?
Come now, Comtessa. You and I both know that's proof of nothing.
So cruel, but so true. Still, if he was ever married, I never heard of it.
And you do have such a knack for hearing interesting things, darling. If there was anything to hear, I dare say you would have heard it.
Oh, modesty forbids.
In any case, it would seem our late prince was quite the enigma then. At least I can feel glad that I wasn't the only one in the dark.
Okay, well, oh, you and the prince.
So how did you know Prince Titanico then? I met him at an art auction myself. How about you?
Oh, I hardly knew him at all, really. He was an acquaintance of my late husband's. They played cards together sometimes at his club, or so I understand.
I see. Is this the first time you've seen him then, since your husband passed away?
Well, he came to the funeral, but other than that, yes. Yes, it is.
Don't you think it's a little odd that he would invite you out to a rather small event like this, when your husband was the one he actually knew?
He said he thought I would appreciate the historical nature of the estate, and he's not wrong on that count. Perhaps he may have also thought I'd be a little lonely, being recently widowed and all. That part's nonsense, of course. A woman in my position gets rather used to it. But it's sweet of the dear boy to try.
Yes, indeed. One does get used to it. Husbands come and go. It's the way of the world, really.
Yeah, if you say so.
Too true.
Okay, well, I'll leave you be. Let's examine the room. Okay, got nothing to say about the bed. Nothing to say about the painting. It's definitely strange, but we can talk about the vases.
Sat on the dresser. Could there possibly still be anything in them? The neck of the nearest vase was too narrow for me to see anything inside at a glance. I suppose I could have stuck my hand in to feel around, but there could easily be a mouse or a spider lurking in there. No, that would be a much more suitable job for Miss Charisse and those small, dainty hands of hers, I think.
Yeah, okay, good for you. Oh, we can look at this one.
I couldn't make out the lady in the ruined portrait, but I assumed it must be some grand old dame of the Lee household. Why had she been left behind, I wondered? Had the rest of the family simply not liked her? Mind you, if I ever had to sell one of my estates, I'd rather fancy leaving behind as many self-portraits as I could spare. You know, just so that the new owners would feel like I was keeping an eye on them.
Okay, not creepy at all. There's a side table here.
On a small table near the center of the room sat a little book, the kind one could write in. Could it be a diary? And by reading it, might I steal a forbidden glimpse into the inner life of some member of the once mighty Lee family?
Ooh, let's read it and
But
snoop.
to my great disappointment, I found the pages empty.
Ah, damn.
Ah, well, I suppose that hoping to discover the defiant last words of the infamous Lamika Lee written in blood really would have been a bit much to ask for.
Damn. Oh, I can look at this pillow
I'd
here.
helpfully noted the garish red color of the bed the first time we visited the room. But this time, something looked off. Near the top of the bed, the color looked darker than before. I reached beneath the pillows, and sure enough...
Oh, another knife. Huh.
It was a knife with a distinctively wavy blade. A blade that was covered with blood. I'd wager a good portion of my last husband's life insurance that the blood belonged to Prince Titanico himself.
So then, what was with the other knife then that we got?
So, there hadn't been just one knife, but two. But which one had stabbed the prince? Or had they both? My discovery seemed to have led to more questions than answers, but one way or another, I was certain that this was a critical piece in the puzzle of the prince's death.
I say, darling, what have you got there?
Well, it seems to be a knife. I found it here under the pillow.
That makes me suspicious of our little friend here, seeing as she was the one that was in this room.
A knife? Goodness, do you think it could be the murder weapon?
I'm not sure, but it very well could be. Let's just leave it here, shall we? I'm sure the police will want to know about it later, but for now, it will be our little secret.
Very well, dear. I do so love a good secret.
Of course you do. Okay, I think we're done with this room, so... yeah, we can't talk to her about anything, so let's leave. Okay, let's make our rounds again. Oh no, we could go to Manor Grounds. Okay, well before we do that, I'm gonna quickly go back to each room and see if I can talk to any of these people again. Oh yeah, here we go, so we can ask him a couple of questions.
Horatio, my dear, I'm so sorry, but I'm afraid you've got some explaining to do.
Now, Misfortune, I already told you, a magician...
Yes, never reveals his secrets and all that. Why don't we just skip to the part where you tell me what this is all about?
Oh. When are we going out there? A knife?
How about this? Wait. That's not what I meant. Pretend you didn't see that. What I really meant to show you was,
Okay, so not that.
Horatio, my dear,
Now, Misfortune...
Yes.
Oh, the timer, right.
Where did you find that?
In the breaker room, darling. Right where you left it.
Oh.
Here's the part where you start talking, then.
Well, you're right. I put it there. It was Titanico's idea. He thought the whole blackout business would add some drama to the evening.
An excuse to startle us. Especially poor little Miss Therese. So there was nothing wrong with the wiring, then?
Nothing at all. That's why he had to make sure to send me to deal with it.
So, you were the only other one who knew about this little special effect, then?
Yes, I do believe so. I did say that the prince often took me into his confidence, didn't I?
Yes, several times, I think.
Well, you won't tell anyone else, will you? As you can see, it had nothing to do with the murder.
Are you sure about that?
It does seem that way, I suppose. At least, for now.
Okay, so that answers that then.
Horatio, dear, are you certain you won't tell me about this special announcement that the prince was going to make?
Of course. My lips are sealed.
Oh, ho-hum. Then I suppose I'll just have to tell you about it.
You... what?
It had to do with this, didn't it?
The ring, maybe? Yeah, it's the only thing I can think of.
Alakazam, how did you get that?
I rather wish I knew that myself. But for now, I think it's best to stay on track while the wizard is still wonderstruck. Tut-tut, my dear. Magicians aren't the only ones who get to keep secrets. The important thing is what the prince planned to do with it. It was his, wasn't it?
Well, yes. I mean, it was. Well, it wasn't exactly for him, you see. Yet, oh dear.
Yeah, I'm guessing it was for the little girl.
No need to worry, darling. I already know exactly what it was for.
Yeah, it's gonna propose to
It's
Cherise.
simple, really. He was going to propose to Cherise.
And what makes you say that?
Come now, my dear. It doesn't take a fortune teller to see that he'd been doing everything in his power to sweep her off her feet. Add to that a diamond ring sized for her slender little fingers, and the story all but writes itself.
It is true that he was quite, taken with her, yes. I mean, who wouldn't be, really?
Oh, yes. Sweet, demure, pliable, and very, very rich. Just the type for the prince, I'm sure.
You're not going to tell Miss Cherise about this, are you? Surely it would only make things even harder for her.
No, at least not yet. Like I said, sometimes I like to have a secret or two up my sleeve myself. But confirming that I was right about the prince's intent certainly does paint this mystery in a whole new light.
Okay, so that answers a lot. Oh, okay, I can talk to her as well.
So, my poor little girl, I was talking to my friend the Contessa, and she told me she'd heard people at court say the rudest things about your late family.
I suppose they might have done. Sometimes people will say things that are quite unkind. I try not to let it bother me.
Still, it must be awfully hard being a new money family when there are so many busybodies who go on and on about tradition and blue blood and that sort of thing.
Oh, I don't think so. Some people will say cruel things about anybody. I've heard them say things even about the Contessa, too. So it wasn't just us.
About the Contessa, really? I thought you said you didn't listen to that sort of thing.
I try not to. But Titanico talked about it sometimes. I think he knew the Contessa's last husband before he passed away.
My goodness! Surely he didn't imply that she was in any way responsible. That would be unthinkable.
Well, he did say there were rumors. But I'm sure that's all they were. Like I said, people say nasty things sometimes.
Yes, my dear. They most certainly do.
Okay, well, that's that then. Okay, well, I already checked in, that was the last of the people, so let's go to the manor grounds. Yep, still raining.
When I'd first arrived at the manor house, I thought it might rain that evening. And in light of recent events, I half expected a flash of lightning to provide an atmospheric backdrop to the stage of our little drama, complete with the clap of thunder as the applause. But the night air hung cold and still, and the only sound was the rustling of weeds and brush that clawed against the foundations of the building. Wait, rustling? But there isn't any wind. Who's that out there?
Uh-oh.
It's
It's only just you.
Misfortunate, ma'am.
I say, what in the world are you doing skulking about in the brush like that? Don't tell me they get you to do the groundskeeping around here, too.
Sometimes I do a bit of gardening, yes. You know, when things get out of hand.
Gardening, at a time like this?
Well, no, ma'am. Right now, I'm keeping an eye out for strangers, just to keep everyone safe.
Okay, that's a little suspicious, but I'll let it pass for now.
What a relief. I do feel ever so much safer when a hulking man with an eye patch is lurking in the shadows right outside the house.
I don't like that he was silent there.
So, you were in quite the tizzy when you came running to find me earlier. Was it you who found the body?
Yes, ma'am. I found it in the hall, just like you saw.
And what were you doing before that?
Well, I let the boss, I mean, the prince, into the hall to take his phone call. Then I went to the pantry to get more candles for the dining room. I didn't know how long Horatio was going to be with the lights.
So, the prince was alone then when you left him in the hall?
Yes, ma'am. Without a doubt.
Why then, it appears you may have been the last one to see the poor prince alive.
Wouldn't that actually have been the killer, ma'am?
I suppose so. But then, you did just say you were quite certain he was alone.
What do you mean by that? I'm just doing my job here.
Oh yes, of course. I'm sure you're quite excellent at, well, whatever it is that valets do.
Yeah, I get the feeling we don't want to exactly piss this guy off. Okay, well that was awkward. Okay.
My dear Clops, please tell me you didn't really think there might still be a stranger lurking around here in the underbrush.
Well, ma'am, no one was watching the door when the prince was in the hall. Whoever did it could have run right out the front door.
Why, indeed they could have. Not much gets by you, it seems. And yet, here you are, searching through the weeds at the base of the house. With the coast clear, would our furtive stranger not just have kept going?
I'm sure he probably did. I'm just looking for footprints.
Oh, footprints now. Ah, yes, of course. And have you found any?
No, ma'am.
More's the pity. It would have been so much nicer to believe the killer was no longer in the house. Especially with our resident bodyguard busy traipsing through the muck outside.
Sorry, ma'am, but I'm just a valet.
Of course you are. Can you tell me anything about our late host? Perhaps about this grand announcement of his?
About the boss? I mean, the prince? Sorry, ma'am, but he wasn't the sort to confide in a mere valet like myself.
Oh, come now. I know how it is with servants. You're bound to have seen or heard a thing or two about the house, whether your master knows it or not.
Look, I take my duties seriously. I make it a point not to see things that I'm not supposed to see.
Yes, I suppose not seeing things would be rather a specialty of yours. Tell me, have you worked for the prince for a long time?
I wonder if he, was told not to see the murder, perhaps.
Yes, ma'am. Many years now.
And you're still just a valet? Tisk tisk. Promotions must be hard to come by in that household.
Okay, now about the phone call.
That's right. In all this commotion, I'd almost forgotten the whole reason the prince left us was to take a phone call. Do you know who was calling?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Well, that's a little odd. They didn't give a name.
I asked, but they said the matter was confidential.
So
Of
you
course.
spoke to them then. Can you describe anything at all about the caller?
Yes, I took the call, and they asked for the prince right away. Which is a bit funny, now that you mention it. I didn't think very many people would have this number. Anyway, pretty sure the caller was a woman. She was all crisp and businesslike, too. I'm afraid I can't tell you more than that.
I suppose it would be too much to hope that this rotting old place would have call display.
No, ma'am. It's a wonder most of the wiring around here even works at all.
Must be magic, I suppose.
Indeed. Okay, well, we'll leave you be, and let's start examining the grounds.
There were stories from the time of the Revolutionary War that when soldiers first stormed the grounds of the Lee Manor, ferocious spectral beasts appeared out of nowhere to tear apart the terrified trespassers. Of course, you can't believe everything you hear. But I found myself keeping a watchful eye on the wolf statues in the courtyard, just to be sure.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be coming to life. Again, unless this visual novel takes a supernatural turn. One is this.
Klops claimed he had already checked the ground around the house for footprints, but I thought it couldn't hurt to double check. Apparently I thought wrong though, for as I stepped off the path into the brush, the weeds and thorns tore at my skirts and scratched my ankles. You know, I think I'll just take the one-eyed brute's word for it after all.
Okay, probably for the best. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of it. Okay, there is a shed over here.
A rundown shed sat in the corner of the yard. Gingerly, I tried the door, but the wood had swollen, and it seemed stuck in its frame. It was just as well, I suppose. Ugh. Why would I want to go inside a moldy old shed anyway?
Yeah, you never know, somebody could be hiding in there. Okay, what else have we got around here? We've got the front gate. And then the house. Okay, well, nothing really interesting. Okay, well, we do have this phone number to try.
If I knew of one worth calling.
Yeah, we do. So it's 11223344. Very easy number to remember.
Oxley Accounting Offices. That's what that Leah girl had said. Of course, she could have just been making it up to get rid of me. I'd certainly do the same to her. But
I guess that's gonna work.
To tell you the truth, I'm not really sure.
I see. That doesn't bode well for the organizational state of your paperwork.
Actually, I'm calling on behalf of a friend.
In that case, please be advised then that I will only be able to answer the most basic of queries without certified written permission from your associate, or friend, as you call them.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be doing that anytime soon.
Sadly, I fear my friend's signature would be difficult to obtain at the moment. But I think basic queries will do well enough for now.
Okay, well, let's do this.
Now, Miss Oxley, was it? You sound like a very organized person. Can you tell me if you called this number earlier this evening?
Yes, I log all of my calls, both incoming and outgoing. And yes, I did call this number at 8:32 p.m. Sharp, of course.
Yes, 8:30. That sounds about right. Wait a minute. Isn't that rather late for an accounting office to still be open?
An 8-hour business day is standard in many sectors, but we take our work very seriously here at Oxley Accounting. Besides which, it was requested that I call at precisely that time.
Okay, well, maybe that was still a part of his plan.
Requested? How odd. Requested by whom?
In the absence of written consent, I am not authorized to provide that information.
Of course not.
Oh, of course you're not. How silly of me. Can you at least tell me if you spoke to anyone when you called?
Yes, the call was answered. I asked to speak with a particular individual and was told to wait.
And you did wait then?
For 4 minutes and 36 seconds, yes.
And after such an oddly specific yet arbitrary amount of time, you hung up?
Certainly not. Someone picked up, I introduced myself again, and then they hung up.
How rude. To think anyone could hang up on such an obviously charming personality as yours.
Weird.
Might you happen to know a man called Prince Titanico?
I am familiar with that name, yes. In fact, I was hoping I might speak to him. Is he there?
Yeah, about that.
I'm afraid that really won't be possible.
Very well. In that case, please inform him I will continue to try to contact him at regular intervals.
Oh, you can try. Can you tell me, was Prince Titanico a client of your office?
In the absence of written consent, I am not authorized to provide that information.
But if you're trying to contact him, you must have some kind of business relation with him.
In the absence of written consent, I am not authorized to provide that information.
Yeah, whatever.
You can be just insufferably obstinate, can't you?
If by that you mean thoroughly professional, then yes.
Same thing, really.
Do we really want to tell her this? But, okay, well.
Miss Oxley, I'm not entirely sure how to tell you this, but Prince Titanico is dead.
I see. That will definitely have some ramifications for my paperwork.
Not only that, but it seems rather likely that he was killed precisely when he came to answer your phone call.
Noted. I suppose that explains why he hung up so abruptly and didn't call back.
Yes, didn't you find that a little bit odd at the time?
Not really. For certain types of business, it's quite common to encounter some reluctance on behalf of the other party.
But hang on, I thought the prince was your client. Why would he be reluctant to speak with his own accountant?
Accounting is not the only service we provide at our office. We also perform audits, credit checks, and financial investigations of various sorts.
Of course, now it makes sense. The prince was being audited, wasn't he?
In the absence of written consent,
of course,
I am not
yeah.
authorized to provide that information.
It's quite all right, dearie. I can connect the dots myself. You've been ever so helpful. In spite of yourself, really.
You are welcome to log your opinion of our interaction on our office's website feedback form. Now, exactly who was I speaking with again? Are you with the police?
Ah, No, they're on their way. My name's Misfortune. I'm one of the guests.
I'm quite sure that name has been in my files before. Something to do with a possible inheritance tax irregularity from a deceased spouse? Let me check.
I don't think there's any need for that.
That won't be necessary. Besides, the wiring is a bit dodgy in this place. The phone could go out at any moment. Ta-ta then!
Okay, well, bye-bye. Oh, we can talk to him about cops, okay.
So, that Klops fellow. He was the prince's valet. Have I got that right?
Yes, that's right. Mr. Tor is the butler, but today's his day out.
So is he, a good valet then? I only ask because I just found him skulking about in the brush outside, and I wasn't really sure if that was the sort of things valets usually do.
Was he now? Well, I can't say I know terribly much about the exact duties of my dear friend's household staff, but I know he did some gardening from time to time.
Indeed, gardening. I believe he said something along those lines as well.
Yes, well, he was quite good at whacking weeds. Or so I heard.
I suppose that sounds about right. If I were a weed, or really, even if I wasn't, I wouldn't want to get whacked by him either. Was he happy with his work? Do you know?
Come to think of it, he did seem a bit jealous of Mr. Tor's position from time to time.
No doubt being a butler pays better than a mere valet. Though I'm not sure how either stacks up against a grand magus.
Need I remind you, Misfortune, I am not, was not, an employee of the prince's household.
But of course, how silly of me. So back to Mr. Klops then. Do you know if he had issues with money? Might he badly have needed a raise?
Really couldn't say. Perhaps someone on the staff did, though. I did sometimes hear Mr. Tor complain about small valuables going missing.
So very interesting. You've been a great help, my dear Horatio.
It is my pleasure to be of service.
Yes, thanks.